We are almost done with January of 2026, which that means if you've been a part of this community, if you've been a part of this podcast, it's time for our NBA monthly power rankings. Also, NHL power rankings coming out later today, so the link should be in the description. But NBA monthly power rankings coming up right after this intro. We're struggling today. I don't know why I can't speak, but let's roll the intro and let's get into it. That is right, everybody. Welcome back to Inside the Zone with Mateo, and it is time for our monthly NBA power rankings, our January NBA power rankings. And as you know, unlike the NFL, where we can do power rankings throughout the season every other week, or every single week, the NBA and NHL power seasons are much longer than the NFL seasons. So we just do one episode a month. Usually the last Tuesday of every month is we dedicate that just to NBA and NHL power rankings. So my NBA power rankings, what you're watching right now, comes out, right? And actually at the same time, my NHL power rankings come out. It's the same exact episode, but for the NHL. So we're just going to power rank the NBA teams today. We'll do the same thing for the NHL teams in the other episode. I'm not going to combine them like I normally do. I decided I'm going to make them their own little mini episode. So it's going to be like part A, part B kind of thing. But hope you guys are having a wonderful day. And let's just get into it. I can't believe we're almost at February. It's almost Super Bowl time. A weekly NFL show coming up on Thursday. That will be, I believe, January 29th. But without further ado, let's get into it. And as a reminder, here was my December NBA power rankings. We had the Thunder at 1, Spurs at 2, Nuggets 3. This was December, right? Yeah. Nuggets 3, Pistons 4, Knicks at 5, Rockets 6, Lakers 7, Minnesota Timberwolves at 8. My Minnesota Timberwolves, as you know, I'm based in Minnesota. Number 9 were the Celtics, and number 10 were the Orlando Magic. Those were my top 10 teams. In the NBA as of December. Let's see. When was that? December, I think, like 29th or 30th, around there. But we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go 1 through 30, and just for January, I'll give you my thoughts on these teams. We're approaching the NBA trade deadline, and also speaking of that, we will be going live at the NBA trade deadline, so hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, so you don't miss that. But before we get into my power rankings, let's take a little look at like the state of the league here. What's going on in the NBA right now in the Eastern Conference, as it has been for most of the season. The Detroit Pistons lead the Eastern Conference. They have a 5-game lead over the Boston Celtics, as the Pistons are 33-11. The Celtics, then 5 games back, are 29-17, still without Jason Tatum, which is very surprising. The Toronto Raptors are next at 29-19. The Knicks have been dropping, surprisingly. Actually, it's not really surprising. I'll tell you more when we rank the Knicks, on my opinion, on the New York Knicks. And we might even do a full episode kind of talking about trade deadline and what the Knicks need to do. But they're at 27-18. The Cavs are 28-20. The 76ers are 24-21. And then in the play-in, the Heat 25-22. Orlando 23-22. The Chicago Bulls 23-23. And then after trading Trae Young, the Atlanta Hawks sit as the 10th spot in the Eastern Conference at 23-25, 12 games back of the Detroit Pistons, but only about 3 games or so out of a playoff spot that would not involve the play-in. And then the teams that aren't even in a play-in spot are the Bucks, the Hornets, the Nets, the Pacers, and the Wizards. And that is where we start. We start typically towards the bottom, especially for the NBA. The NHL can sometimes vary, but for this just awful spot in the Eastern Conference, we're going to start with the Eastern, and then we'll talk about the West in a second. Because I do obviously think, and I think you should think this if you're an NBA fan, the Eastern Conference is much weaker than the Western Conference. There are a lot of bad teams, no offense to some of these teams in the Eastern Conference. And I might even bring this up when we talk about the Western Conference, but I really do think the Phoenix Suns, the Golden State Warriors, one of those teams that are in a play-in spot at the moment in the Western Conference, would probably be a 2 or 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. And that just shows you how competitive the Western Conference has been. So no offense to some of these teams in the East. It's just the Wizards, the Pacers, the Nets, the Hornets, unfortunately the Bucks with Giannis Antetokounmpo. It's a weaker conference, so there's going to be a lot more just awful teams, in my opinion. So starting off with the Brooklyn Nets, they're going to be in there. They're in the just awful category right now. They have, shown some signs of like possibilities of maybe, competing at some point, maybe closer than we all expected. I did have them in no more than a play-in spot last month. However, I'm going to put them back at the just awful because we do know more about teams than we did a month ago. January and February is kind of the spot where, teams figure out, okay, am I going to buy? Am I going to sell at the deadline? Or am I just going to try to rebuild? And the Brooklyn Nets, I think maybe I would expect the Brooklyn Nets, excuse me. I would expect them to make a move in free agency. I really think they're not that far off. And I think with the MPJ situation, they maybe even trade him at the trade deadline for some assets for next year. It's going to be interesting to see what the Nets do, but I really like that. I'm really intrigued by that team. That is why I did have them as no more than a play-in spot last NBA power ranking, but I did kind of edit the tiers a little bit. So now we only have 5 tiers: finals favorites, basically, the playoff contenders, first round exits, play-in teams, and then just awful. I just kind of condensed it a little bit more to make it a little more professional. But the Brooklyn Nets are going to be in the just awful spot right now. I'm just going to go through the list here. They're in alphabetical order. I'm going to go through all the teams, put them in there, and then I will arrange them in that order of how I think they are in that tier after we're done with that tier. And we're going to start with the Eastern Conference, and then we'll add in the West as we talk about the West. But then the Charlotte Hornets are another team right now, sit at 19 and 28, a long way. Something I do want to tease here. I would want to be interested. I'm going to be very interested to see this offseason what they do with LaMelo Ball. Do they move on from LaMelo Ball? Because it doesn't seem like it's worked. Do they trade for him? Do they trade him? I could see a couple teams wanting him. Brooklyn maybe even being one of those destinations. So maybe do you see an offseason trade that LaMelo Ball goes to someone like the Nets? Could be. Or do the Hornets keep them? I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see what they do. But they're still, a terrible team to watch. It's sad. It's sad, Charlotte. You'll get there eventually. Just might not be for the next couple years, but I'm going to be really interested to see what happens with the LaMelo Ball situation over there in Charlotte. The other team in the West, the next one is the Indiana Pacers, which we just saw them in the NBA Finals last year against the Oklahoma City Thunder. They lose Tyrese Halliburton. He still hasn't played. He is still on track to come back at some point this season, depending on how well the Pacers are playing. Maybe, again, in a weak Eastern Conference, sure, they have 11 wins, but you could see the Bulls, Hawks, Magic, Heat, one of them, maybe even the 76ers, go on a losing streak for sure. And maybe if the Pacers get hot with Halliburton, who knows? Maybe they sneak into the 10th seed. Highly doubt it, but you never know what might happen. But, they're still in the just awful territory here. This is, again, just for the Eastern Conference. I'm passing on some of the Western Conference teams at the moment. Then the others, that I'd probably put in is, unfortunately, still the Washington Wizards. I am really intrigued by, the Washington Wizards. I think they might be one of the better of these four, or one of the best out of these four, excuse me. But, they're still far away. They're still one of the worst teams in the league record-wise. They're 10 and 34. That is indeed the worst record in the NBA. 23 games back of first place, 1-9 in their last 9, currently on a 9-game losing streak. And it's just not looking good. It's not looking good for the Wizards as it hasn't. Maybe they'll be lucky to get, a top 3 guy, and I hope they do. I think they, a Dabonsa, a Boozer, maybe a Darren Peterson. One of those 3, I think, should go to Washington this year, and I think any of them could be a strong piece for this Wizards team. I think about, since they got rid of CJ McCollum, and now they have Trae Young. Trae Young plays the point guard position. I don't know if it's going to be a long-term situation over there in Washington, but I think maybe you don't need a Darren Peterson. Maybe you need a wing in maybe DeBonsa or Boozer. So I'm going to be interested to see who they take with their selection, who falls to them, or if they get the number 1 overall pick, who do they see as the best player in the draft for their team. I think it would probably be DeBonsa, or Boozer over Darren Peterson, but who knows? Maybe they want the backcourt of Peterson and Young. That could be interesting. Again, I don't know if Young is also a long-term solution, in the Wizards' minds right now, but it's going to be interesting to see. Despite that, they're still in the just awful tier. And the final team that's not in a play-in spot right now in the East is the Milwaukee Bucks. And I'm sorry, Giannis. Giannis, I want you to come to Minnesota. I don't think it's going to happen, but I really want you to come. And I think it's still an option until it isn't. There's still there's a week and a half, 10 days left to trade Giannis. I just doubt anything's going to happen, but I would love it to see, Giannis get traded, whether it's to the Timberwolves, the Warriors, the Heat, anyone. I want to see him get out of there and contend because he is truly one of the best players in the world. Maybe arguably a top 10 player in the entire NBA history. He's just so fun to watch. And, he's annoyed. He wants to get out. And for those reasons, because they have one of the best players in NBA history, at least what I think, he's one of the best players in NBA history. I'm going to put him as the best out of these 5 that are just awful in the NBA. However, I'm not going to just, I think, no, that's what I'm going to end it there for the East and the just awful. And let's arrange these a little bit here. I think the Wizards are still worse than the Pacers. And I really like this order here. I like Bucks better than the Nets. I like the Nets better than these other 3 teams. I like the Hornets better than the Pacers and the Wizards. I like the Pacers better than the Wizards. And that's just kind of how I view it here. And then we'll mix in, of course, the Western Conference teams at the end. But I want to focus more of my time on the Western Conference because, obviously, I'm a Minnesota Timberwolves fan. And we're in the Western Conference. It's a highly competitive conference. We've been struggling quite a bit. So let's move on to play-in teams, teams that I think will make the play-in, but not really anything else. That's kind of their ceiling in the Eastern Conference. And again, when you take a look at the records here, the Heat, Magic, Bulls, and Hawks are currently in the play-in spot. And right now, I think there's 2 teams that have locked play-in spots right now that, that's their ceiling. I don't see them getting out of the play-in tournament unless they make moves here at the upcoming trade deadline. And that will be the Atlanta Hawks and the Chicago Bulls. I really like Chicago. I really like Atlanta. I like Jalen Johnson. I like, Josh Giddey, Colby White. I actually don't know if Colby White's going to be on that team much longer. I think, there have been rumors that he's going to get traded to the Timberwolves or some other team that needs a point guard. But I also like Modest Buzelis. I like a lot of those players on the Chicago Bulls. I've kind of not fallen in love with them, but I've really focused a lot on the Chicago Bulls, and I really like their game. And I really like, their players on that team and just how they run that team in general. And it's really cool to watch that team. They're young, and I really think they have tons of potential. So, playing as being a ceiling for them in a weak Eastern Conference, I think they have enough to, make it there. But again, once it comes playoff time, I think the inexperience, they're going to have to play a team like either the Magic, the Heat, the 76ers, maybe even the Cavs if they drop down. Maybe you see them play the Hawks. And I think even if you see them play the Hawks, I think I would take the Hawks over the Bulls right now just because Jalen Johnson is playing really well. Dyson Daniels has been balling. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, why did the Timberwolves let him go? I don't know. He's been great there. You could argue that the Atlanta Hawks have been worse since the trade of Trae Young, but they are still 6-4 in their last 10. They are winners of 3 straight as I'm recording this video. And the Chicago Bulls right now, kind of same thing, 6-4 in their last 10. But then the next team in the standings, as you can see here, as I pull that up right there, are the Orlando Magic. I had the Orlando Magic as a top 10 team last month, and this team has been one of the more surprising teams to fall this quickly in the month of January. They have not looked good whatsoever. I've been watching, a little bit of them. I haven't, to be honest, I'm gonna, say this. I haven't watched enough, I don't think, to have a full opinion, but they are currently on a 4-game losing streak. Previous to that, they were on a 6-game winning streak, but now in a little bit of a slump, kind of like your Minnesota Timberwolves. And on this on paper, you look at their squad and say, okay, they have a lot of potential. You got Franz Wagner, you got Paolo Banchero, you got Desmond Bain, you got all those pieces. But when you watch them, and I'll watch them some highlights on Sports Center when I'm getting ready for bed, or I'll pull up, Paolo Banchero stats or something, random things like that, and you're just not totally impressed with the way they play as a team. And given that, this is kind of one of the bigger drops, I think, of my power rankings. I'm gonna put them as no more than a play-in team. I am gonna truly drop them down from a top 10 team in the entire NBA. And I did think when I said I put them as a top 10 team because they were playing well. They were playing well as a team. The team chemistry just is not there right now. I've not been impressed by the way they've been playing. Something seems a little off. And I'll give them, they're probably going to be one of the more respected play-in teams that I put in my play-in little tier here. But right now, I've not been happy. I've not been satisfied with what the Orlando Magic have done for you guys. I'm sorry, Magic fans, but right now you're averaging 115 points per game. That's one of the lowest in the NBA at the moment. And you're giving up about that. So you're like winning only like 50% of the time. That's not a winning formula. Again, 4-game losing streak. And you have really been struggling on the road right now, and most likely you're going to have to be on the road to win a playoff series. And I don't know, even if you have a home playoff series, where you have home court advantage. So it's just interesting. They're sitting almost one game above 500 at 23 and 22 as I'm recording this. I could for sure see them making the playoffs, but I think right now their ceiling is a play-in spot. We'll see, though, what happens. Maybe next month here in February, we'll see, oh, wow, maybe I was wrong, and maybe they go back to being a playoff contender or a first-round exit or something like that. I could see them as a first-round exit for sure, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave them at the play-in spot for now, which that means who are these first-round exits? So we have 7 teams left. We have the top 7 teams standing-wise, record-wise, in the Eastern Conference. The Pistons, Celtics, Raptors, Knicks, Cavs, 76ers, and the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat are a very interesting story. They're right now the best of the play-in spots record-wise, 9.5 games back of the Detroit Pistons. I think the Miami Heat will be making a trade somewhat in the next 9 to 10 days. When I'm recording this, it's January 27th. Trade deadline is February 5th. I think by February 5th, the Heat will have made at least one trade. I think they're going to be not even fighting for a play-in spot. I really do think the 76ers or the Cavs, or even maybe the Knicks fall to that 7 seed. I really think the Heat will pick things up, and I think they will be in a top 6 role. However, that means they can still lose in the first round. And am I going to say they're a first-round exit? I'm actually not going to say that right now. I'm going to believe in the Miami Heat right now, and I'm going to put them in playoff contenders. I really, truly believe in the Miami Heat. For some reason, something tells me they're going to make a trade. Whether it's a Ja Morant trade, whether it's a Giannis Antetokounmpo trade, they're going to get a bigger name. It might not be a Giannis type of player. It might be a Ja, or a little worse than a Ja Morant trade of a name that maybe hasn't been flowing around. Maybe it's a Kobe White trade. I think they're going to do something, though, that brings in somewhat of a star. It doesn't have to be a superstar, but some kind of star, a mild star, and it just is going to elevate their chances. I really like the way they play. Their team chemistry, contrasting to the other Florida team, the Orlando Magic that we just talked about, they have enough, I believe, to win a playoff series. So, whether or not they're not a first-round exit, I have to put them as a playoff contender. You have to think, okay, they could contend possibly. Do I think they're going to win a championship this year? No, and that is why they're not a finals favorite. But they can be a playoff contender. They can be fighting, to win a playoff series or 2, or maybe even go to the Eastern Conference Finals, mostly because the Eastern Conference is way weaker than the Western Conference. So, with that all being said, the Miami Heat aren't going to be a first-round exit team, but the Miami Heat will be a playoff contender, meaning they could win up to two series, or maybe even just make it to the second round. That's kind of the floor of the Miami Heat, I believe, or of that tier. Playoff contenders, meaning you win the first series and you move on to at least the second round, or maybe even the third round, or maybe, I think finals favorites would be teams either the highest chance to win a finals or, make the finals, if that kind of makes sense. But we got to stay, keep going. We got to keep going. I gotta stop just yapping and actually just talk. And I don't know what's going on. It's fine. I might even edit that out. I don't think whatever. Okay, the New York Knicks, boys. That's who I really want to talk about here, because the New York Knicks. Yes, we were going in kind of record order, from 10 to 1, but I gotta go to the New York Knicks. 6.5 games back of first place. They have been a straight up mess. Sure, they've won 2 straight, but they're 4-6 in their last 10. They have been dropping for a long time. They used to be the number 1 team. Now the Pistons kind of took over that for a while, and now have been slowly dropping. In my December power ranking, you could see I had them as a top 5 team. I had the Pistons and the Knicks on top of the, Eastern Conference by pretty much a lot. The only reason I had the Celtics in there was because I thought, okay, well, they're doing well and they don't even have Tatum. Tease, that means pretty much since the Celtics have been absolutely passing the Knicks, they're going to be jumping up in the power rankings. There's a teaser for more coming up in a second. But the New York Knicks, they've been awful. They need something, probably involving Karl-Anthony Towns getting traded. If they don't trade Karl-Anthony Towns, I'm going to be very intrigued to see what they do with him in the offseason. But as of right now, the New York Knicks, in my opinion, are a first-round exit. Yes, you heard it. And, I said it. I said it. The New York Knicks, in my opinion, are a first-round exit right now. 27-18 is still a very good record when you're talking about the Eastern Conference. When you're talking about the Western Conference, the team that has that same record is the Phoenix Suns, and then the Golden State Warriors have one less win. You're talking about a team like that. When you take a look at the Phoenix Suns and Golden State Warriors and you compare them to the New York Knicks, I would say probably at least 7 out of the 10 times you ask somebody, who are you taking, the Suns or the Warriors over the Knicks? 7 out of 10 of those people are going to say the Suns or the Warriors, and they had the same record. The Knicks, I don't know what's been going on. Somebody can tell me in the comments, but the New York Knicks, dude, they got to fix something, and I'm pretty sure it's Karl-Anthony Towns. That's the problem right now. Not quite sure why. Jalen Brunson needs a different co-star. Maybe take Julius Randle back. What about we just undo that trade and we keep DiVincenzo, but you get Julius Randle. You give me maybe a first-round pick back. Give me Cat and a first-round pick back or something like that. And I don't know. That's probably I don't want Cat back, but I was just saying in general, it's like they need somebody like a Julius Randle or someone unlike Karl-Anthony Towns who, Karl-Anthony Towns, he can shoot, he can get you points, but it's something's just not clicking, and I'm not sure what it is. But right now, I'm just getting the vibes that, the New York Knicks are a first-round exit, and that's kind of insane. That's insane because I had them as a top 5 team last month. Well, it was technically last year too because it was 2025 of December, so it was still last year, but it was also, last month. And so that's what I have for the New York Knicks. Let me know your thoughts on the New York Knicks in the comments down below. And if you're still watching, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I really do appreciate it. But then the next team I want to talk about, we got some other teams. We got the 76ers, the Cavs, Raptors, Celtics, and the Pistons. I want to talk about the top 3 teams at the end. They deserve me talking about them separate. I want to talk about the Cavs and the 76ers kind of combined because I kind of see them at the same way. The Cavs and the 76ers right here. I'm going to bring them up here to the closest right here. You can see on my YouTube audience. On Spotify you can't, but just listen. The Cleveland Cavaliers and the Philadelphia 76ers have been kind of insane. It's been they're on a roller coaster right now. They've had some highs, they've had some lows, they've had just kind of a mid-season, but right now, when you take a look at the standings, they are a top 6 team in the Eastern Conference, which means they are out of the play-in spot. They are in a playoff spot right now, and sure, the 76ers are tied with the Heat, and I kind of just glazed the Heat for no good reason just a couple minutes ago. The 76ers, though, I do think have a lot of good weapons. Is it enough to win a playoff series? I'm going to say no. The Philadelphia 76ers, they're close. They're close, but I do think there's something holding them back, and I'm not totally sure why. I got to be honest with you. I don't quite know, okay? But I think that team does know that there's something wrong, and I'm begging them to try to figure that out because I want to see VJ Edgecombe succeed. I think he's probably my favorite rookie drafted in this 2025 draft class. Respect to Cooper Flagg. I like watching him play. Cooper the Hooper, they call him. But VJ Edgecombe is just kind of, he's been low-key. He's just fun to watch as well. He's kind of, it's like the difference with, I'm trying to find a good comparison. Kind of Doncic is Cooper Flagg, and Anthony Edwards is VJ Edgecombe. Both are fun to watch. Both are respected. Probably Cooper Flagg and Luka Doncic are more respected than Anthony Edwards and VJ Edgecombe. But there's that grit from VJ and Ant that is just kind of fun to watch. And they do it all. They drive. They three-point. They can play defense. They can block. And I just find it really interesting. And, I'm not going to say VJ Edgecombe is the next Anthony Edwards. But I'm saying he's showing a lot of similarities between Anthony Edwards that, hey, chill. I really like watching him. I'm not going to glaze him too much. I already glazed the Heat for no good reason. I didn't even know I was going to glaze the Heat. But when we're talking about the 76ers as a whole, I think the Joel Embiid experiment might be officially over. I think he's getting into a place where you could trade him. I think you could upgrade your team around VJ Edgecombe and Tyrese Maxey. Tyrese Maxey, dude, what a player he's been. It's really been a VJ Edgecombe and Tyrese Maxey season rather than a Paul George and Joel Embiid, and that just tells you something. But right now, as a team, right now, with no trades, with nothing, this team is a first-round exit. I'm sorry, 76ers. I am sorry. Which then, the Cleveland Cavaliers. I said, well, they're kind of in the same boat. Right? Well, they're 28-20. 2.5 games above the 76ers. Half game behind the New York Knicks. They're kind of in the same boat, but right now I do trust the Cavs a little bit more because they do have some experience. They were one of the best teams in the NBA last year. And the Cleveland Cavaliers, I do not think are a first-round exit. I really do think they are a playoff contender. I think the Cavs have shown that, they are better than the New York Knicks. So that is where I'm going to put them. I'm going to put them as a playoff contender, meaning, again, they can win a series, maybe even 2 series. 3 series is maybe too much, but I could see them getting into the Eastern Conference Finals. I know it's shocking, but the brackets can somehow align that way, where they maybe only have to beat one of the top 3 teams, and we're going to talk about those top 3 teams right now. Starting off with the Boston Celtics, who I got to glaze. Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Peyton Pritchard. Congratulations. Dude, you guys have, props to you. I just gotta give it. I just gotta give it to you. Come on. You enter this season without one of the best players in the NBA right now. Tatum, I believe, is probably a top 20 player, maybe a top 15. Probably a top 15 player. I think, you got your top 10, and then I think he's in that 11 to 15 range when he's on. And sure, he's a little inconsistent, but I think a lot of people will take Tatum, over a lot of other players. But you come into the season without him, and people were saying, oh, is this Celtics team deep enough to stand, 5 to 6 months without Jason Tatum? It's been 4 months without Jason Tatum. And the Boston Celtics sit 5 games back of the number 1 seed in one of the weakest conferences in the NBA, or the worst, because there's only 2. I don't know why I phrased it that way. A chance. I don't think they're going to catch the Pistons, but a chance to get the number 1 seed. But if anything, I think they're maybe, I'm not going to say locked in at the 2 seed, but things are looking good for a 2 seed. Tatum is on his way to come back. He's going to probably come back in about a month or so. I would not be surprised by the next NBA Power Rankings at the end of February 20. It's not a leap year this year. So it's going to be February 24th. I would not be surprised if Tatum hasn't. I will be. I will be surprised if Jason Tatum hasn't been taken off IR by then. I really think he's going to be playing, especially by March. So it's only 1 more month. And the question is, can the Boston Celtics continue to win games without Jason Tatum for one more month? I think one more month is all you have to do. And then you ease Tatum back in. So maybe you give him a month and a half. And then how scary does this team become in a weak Eastern Conference? I'm saying it. They're a scary team. So when you power rank these teams, they're better than all these other teams. Do I think, though? Do I think they're a finals favorite? Unfortunately, I can't say that because I don't know how this team is going to perform in the playoffs. We don't know how any team is going to perform in the playoffs right now. But because they don't have a clear number one guy, it's normally Brown, and he deserves some MVP votes. But he can have an off night a lot. He's been inconsistent a little bit. I don't know if their bench is deep enough. But all I know is that they're one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference right now. They deserve a lot of praise. And I'm going to say they're the second best team right now in my entire power rankings from the Eastern Conference. So you say, well, what about Toronto? Because you're probably thinking, oh yeah, it's going to be the Pistons as a final favorite. And to that, I would say, yes, you're correct. And then you say, well, what about Toronto? Toronto's really close. I could see Toronto winning a playoff series, and I think they are. Again, they sit one game back of the Boston Celtics, excuse me. And again, I've said this to a couple teams. But to Toronto, I say, think about it. Think about making a trade. When we could do a power rankings and we are going to do it coming up next week, of ranking which teams need to make a move if they haven't made a move already by the trade deadline. I would say these three teams, the Cavs, the Heat, the Raptors, maybe even throw in the Knicks. Those four teams, they got to make a move. It would be wise for them to make a move. Do I think their roster is good enough to win a playoff series? I think the Knicks, you could probably put them on here, and I'd be okay with it, but I'm going to put it at first round exit right now because I got to admit, and we got to see this. We got to see this. We got to note. We got to bring forward this losing streak and, the way that this team has not looked great. We got to put it forward. However, when you look at these three teams, the Raptors, Heat, and Cavs, they all are missing something. The Cavs, it is a lot of injury problems. But the Heat and Raptors especially, they have a lot of good guys, a lot of good, talented, athletic NBA players on their team. But you go through their roster, and the one thing they don't have is a clear number one guy. Scotty Barnes for sure can be that number one guy on the Toronto Raptors. Bam or Tyler Hero could be one of those guys on the Heat. But when a guy like Ja Morant, Domantas Sabonis, who I wouldn't say maybe clear number one, but could be, a Giannis Antetokounmpo, Colby White, when those guys are available, and you're in a pretty weak conference, and you're close to being the best team in that conference, why not try to make a trade? Why not? And I bet they are. I'm not going to lie. I bet they are. But right now, on paper, and in my mind, I'm taking the Pistons and Celtics right now over the Raptors, but it's close. I considered doing this. Celtics, Raptors, Pistons. That's what I considered, but I got to show love to the Pistons. They've been absolutely great. I don't really need to talk about it. Just like I don't need to talk about, the Oklahoma City Thunder because they're clearly always going to be a finals favorite for the next couple years. And that is how we're going to transition to the Western Conference. Because here's a look at the Western Conference playoff picture. At number 1, at 37-10, only have lost 10 games this season, 20-4 at home, are the OKC Thunder. You got the Spurs then, 5.5 games back behind them. And then without Jokic, somehow the Nuggets are tied with them at 31 and 15 for third place, or tied for second place. Then you got the Rockets and the Lakers. Then you got the Timberwolves, who have been in an absolute horrible losing streak. They had lost 5 straight before they absolutely killed the Golden State Warriors. And then in the play-in spots, you got the Suns, the Warriors, the Blazers, the Clippers. And then out of playoff contention, you got the Mavs, the Grizz, the Jazz, the Kings, and the Pelicans. Again, I want this not to be an insanely long episode, but I know it's going to somehow end up being an insanely long episode. But the Pelicans, the Kings, the Jazz, the Grizzlies, they got to be put. They have to be put in just awful. Now, where do I put them? Where do I put them relating to these Eastern Conference? Because I said the Eastern Conference is way worse than the West. And to that, I would say, well, the worst team in the Western Conference record-wise is 12 and 36, and that is the New Orleans Pelicans. And then the Kings are 12 and 35. Those two teams are bad. I'm going to put them right here. So if you can see, I'm going to put the Wizards as the worst team in the NBA. Then you got the Pelicans, then the Pacers, and then the Kings. Then you got the Hornets and Nets, and then it's going to be the Jazz, the Grizzlies, and then before the Bucks will be the Dallas Mavericks. And then also, I don't quite understand how the Clippers, happen to be in a play-in spot right now. They're clearly, I'm going to put them behind the Mavericks and the Bucks. And I do want to talk a little bit about the Dallas Mavericks. And they have had some a lot of injury unluckiness. Kyrie still hasn't played all year. AD's been hurt. Cooper's been dominant. You can kind of say that 6-4 in their last 10. They're flirting with a play-in spot, and I really truly do believe that, as I put the Clippers down in just awful, the Mavericks will probably make the play-in. I don't believe enough in the Clippers. I don't think they are that good of a team, and I think they're just kind of staying right there right now because everybody else is so bad. And what I mean by the Eastern Conference is weaker is besides, the top 8 teams. The top 8 teams in the West, I believe, are arguably the top 8 are probably the top. Okay, how should I phrase this? These top 8 teams: Thunder, Spurs, Nuggets, Rockets, Lakers, Wolves, Suns, Warriors. They are all in the top 11 of the NBA. I would put the Pistons, the Celtics, the Raptors in the top 10. And then I would put the Thunder, Spurs, Nuggets, Rockets, Lakers, Timberwolves, Suns all in the top 10. And then I probably had the Warriors sitting at 11. So it shows you how competitive. It's just the Western Conference is way more competitive. That's the right word. These 9 through 15 in the West are pretty bad too. Portland is kind of lucky to be in the play-in. I could see the Grizzlies and Mavericks making it over the Clippers and the Blazers, but it just is what it is. I don't think they're going to win a play-in spot. They're going to probably be eliminated right away. But I'm just saying, overall, I would take almost 10 Western Conference teams over 12 of the Eastern Conference teams. That's a hot take, but that's kind of what I'm thinking. But when you go back to, power rankings, you see, I don't think I have to talk much about the Pelicans. I don't have to talk much about the Kings. Not much about the Utah Jazz, except, hey, congratulations for beating the Minnesota Timberwolves, who, should not have lost that game. But, hey, congratulations. Keyshawn George kind of went off. Grizzlies need to trade John Morant. Clippers are the Ungskin and just, it's unfortunate, Clippers, but you got to figure out something as well. But the Mavericks are a sneaky team with Cooper the Hooper, and they've been rattled by injuries. But this is where it gets interesting. Oh, it gets interesting here. 2, 4, 6, 8. There are 8 teams here. We put the Thunder at 1 because we don't have to talk about it. We know that they're a good team, and I still think they're the best team in the NBA. Let's go to these play-in teams. The Blazers, the Suns, the Warriors are who I'm thinking of here. Minnesota still shockingly is the 6th seed, thankfully, but only by a half game. But we're going to talk about the 3 teams, in the play-in spots right now. And I think the highest, the ceiling for the Portland Trailblazers is they play-in spot. And I'm taking the Magic. I'm taking the Hawks. I'm taking the Bulls over the Trailblazers right now. Again, I think once Dame's healthy, next season, maybe they can contend for a 7 or 8 spot. But right now, I gotta keep them down here by the play-in and towards the end of the play-in. Almost at just awful, but they're not just awful because they've been kind of balling. They've been kind of balling, not gonna lie. The Warriors, their players are injured every other day. Jimmy Butler's gone. They got to figure something out. Do we see a Jimmy Butler trade? Possibly. But again, of course, I don't know if the play-in is their ceiling. Their floor is a play-in. They're going to make the play-in. I'm pretty confident. And again, I've said this a lot throughout the season. I think these top 6 teams are going to be the top 6 teams. I think they're almost locks. I think the Timberwolves get out of their skid. I think the Lakers are going to end up at least 6. And the Rockets are good. The Nuggets are good. Spurs are good. Thunder are good, obviously. But if I say here, well, if the Warriors or even if the Suns, if they advance, they're going to have to probably play each other in the first round of the play-in tournament. One of them wins. Let's just say, I think right now the Suns would beat them. Right now in a playoff spot. They would go to play probably San Antonio. Do I see the Suns beating San Antonio? No. And then if Golden State were able to, then beat the winner of the 9-8 game. The 9-10 game, which probably they would be able to. That's my opinion. Would they be able to go on the road and beat Oklahoma City, the Thunder, in a 7-game series? I just don't think so. So for both of those 2 teams, because the Western Conference is so competitive, if they were in the Eastern Conference, they would probably be up here. But unfortunately, I think their ceiling is got to be a play-in spot. But also, I think they get out of the play-in. So for those reasons, I'm going to put the Suns and the Warriors at first-round exits. That's what I'm going to do, and it's kind of lining up a little bit nicely. So now we got the last 5 out of the 6 teams, because we're not doing the Thunder, it doesn't matter. San Antonio Spurs have shown to be one of the only teams that can consistently beat the Thunder. Wembanyama is insane. That team around them, De'Aaron Fox, Stephon Castle, Devin Vassell, all those guys, okay? I can name so many more. Dylan Harper. Sochan, right? That team is loaded, depth-wise. They got to be a final favorite still. I'm taking them over. The Detroit Pistons. Right now, I had the Pistons as 4 last month. So my top 2 remain. My top 3 will also remain. Without Jokic, who has missed tons of time with that injury, they have still won. I thought they were going to tank. I thought they were going to be like the 5th or 6th seed until Jokic came back. But I was wrong. They have depth. You gotta admit that and say, okay, Nuggets, you're legit. You're a final favorite. I could see you beating the Spurs or the Thunder and making it to the NBA Finals. Now, this is where it gets interesting. The Los Angeles Lakers, before I do the Rockets, because I want to do the Lakers and then the Timberwolves. The Los Angeles Lakers are in a very interesting spot right now. They have LeBron James, Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves, DeAndre Ayton, Rui Hachimura. Not really much bench. This is a hot take, but it's similar to the Knicks. I don't see this team getting out of the first round. Right now, the Lakers would have to go play. This is who they would play. You ready? the Lakers would play the Rockets in a KD versus LeBron. I'm taking Houston. They're going to have to play one of these 4 teams. I think Spurs and Thunder are the top 2 teams. They're going to play then the playing teams, which are probably going to be the Suns and the Warriors. So the Lakers are going to have to play either the Timberwolves, the Rockets, or the Nuggets. Maybe the Spurs, if the Nuggets get the 2nd seed. I don't see them beating any of those teams, even if they have home court advantage. We saw what the Timberwolves did to them when they had home court advantage last year. I think the ceiling and where they're going to stay at, the reality level, the Los Angeles Lakers are a first-round exit. I will show them some respect by putting them in front of everybody because they have Luka, they have LeBron. But man, Lakers, you gotta figure something out. You gotta figure something out. Because right now I don't totally believe in you. But I do believe in KD and the Houston Rockets, who, again, here is where I put the Lakers, who the Houston Rockets are 28-16. 2 games back of the Nuggets and Spurs. They've been balling. Would I take them over the Detroit Pistons? I'm not sure. But right now, I will take them over the Boston Celtics. And that's where I'm going to put them. So right now, my top 5 are the Thunder, the Spurs, the Nuggets, the Pistons, and the Rockets. My top 6 includes then you have the Celtics. Top 7, you include the Raptors. Those 7 teams, when I think about it as a Minnesota Timberwolves fan, I'm a little bit nervous about. Right now, the Minnesota Timberwolves have shown that the roster they have right now, with the bench they have, with maybe some of the starters that they have, despite having Anthony Edwards, it's not enough. Out of the last 3 years, this year and then the 2 years we went to the Western Conference Final, the first year with Cat, the second year with Randall, and now this is the 3rd year. In my opinion, this is the worst roster constructed all year. This is the worst player performances out of those 3 years. Shannon hasn't played because of injuries. They've given up on Dillingham. Clark is, pretty average or less. Bear and Jay, they just won't play. Reed has been very inconsistent. Jaden McDaniels has been nowhere. Randall will maybe have 1 game a month where he has a good game. Gobert is pretty good. DiVincenzo's pretty good. Anthony Edwards is Ant-Man. But besides Anthony Edwards, when you say Dante DiVincenzo and Rudy Gobert are your best players, when you have Jaden McDaniels and Julius Randle on your team, you're saying DiVincenzo and Rudy Gobert are better? More important to this team than Randle and McDaniels, you have a problem. You have an inconsistency problem. And when I look at the teams, when I'm power ranking these teams, Thunder, the Spurs, the Nuggets, the Pistons, the Rockets, the Celtics, yes, even without Tatum, I know we beat them. Even the Raptors. I say that is where I have to put the Timberwolves. The Timberwolves, last month, they were top 8. And guess what? They stay a top 8 team. This is being very generous. I can't believe I had them at 8. I thought I would have them at like 5 last month. But no. They're staying consistent right now. And I could put them down. I really could. But based on a little bit new of these tiers, I think I trust them a little bit more than the Heat, a little bit more than the Cavs, even though they blew us out one time. But then we blew them out. And I trust them more than all these other teams. They're a top 8 team, which is good. But it's not good enough. And, I really think they need to make a trade. Whether it's Colby White, whether it's Giannis Antetokounmpo, whether it's somebody else that we have not talked about. Minnesota Timberwolves roster right now is not good enough to go back to the Western Conference Final for the 3rd straight year. And certainly not good enough to go to the NBA Finals. And so with that will wrap it up. That will wrap up my NBA monthly power rankings. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And I can't believe I talked forever, but I did. And it is time then. That means it is time to sign off. And you guys, if you enjoyed this, I'm doing the same thing with the NHL teams. That's coming out. That should be out actually right now. Hope you guys had a wonderful day. Let me know your thoughts about these power rankings. As a reminder, let me read them out quick here. Number 1, we got the Thunder, 2 Spurs, 3 Nuggets, 4 Pistons, 5 Rockets, 6 Celtics, 7 are the Raptors, 8 Timberwolves, 9 Heat, and 10, your top 10, to round out your top 10 are the Cleveland Cavaliers, 11 Lakers, 12 Knicks, 13 76ers, 14 Suns, 15 are the Golden State Warriors, 16 Magic, 17 Hawks, 18 Bulls, 19 are the Trailblazers. Then you got, starting at just awful, you have 20 through 30. 10 teams in just awful. At 20 are the Mavericks, 21 are the Bucks, 22 are the Clippers, 23 are the Grizz, 24 are the Jazz, 25 are the Nets, 26 are the Hornets, 27 are the Kings, 28 are the Pacers, 29 are the Pelicans, and 30 are the Washington Wizards. Those are my January monthly NBA power rankings. Let me know who you guys think is the best and the worst team in the NBA. Do you agree with all my takes? Let me know. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to keep God first because He is the most important thing in your lives. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.